Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and iTWire TV interview. I'm joined today by Luis Ubraez. He is the Chief Operations Officer at Comms Group. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Alex, and great job on pronouncing my name. I usually don't, no one does much of the time. I usually introduce myself as Luis, which makes it simpler when you're talking to anyone, right?
Yeah. Well, I've got a funny surname too, which is always gets mispronounced. So I like to find out how to pronounce it properly, and then you know go on with that because it's just a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate I appreciate the effort. I appreciate
yeah.
the effort.
Well, I've sort of been surprised myself sometimes. I look at somebody's name and I say, "Do you say it like that?" And they say, "You got it right first go." You know, they're amazed. But I mean, I speak French and Russian, so I sort of know different pronunciations. And no hablo español, but I know how to say that. So I suppose I can speak a tiny bit. But anyway, we're getting off track.
All
I thought
right.
I'd just
Yeah.
ask you to tell us a little bit about the breadth and depth of offerings from the Comms Group in 2021, and the short version of the things that you have planned for this year.
Look, just to provide a background to the viewers, right, or who Comms Group is.
Mm.
Look, we're a leading APAC service provider that specializes in unified communications. Look, we started in Australia, offering telephony and expanded our reach across multiple countries through key partnership that we had at the time, and we
Mm-hmm.
still have in place. Look, I guess on a natural evolution of the business, we started broadening our capabilities around services like data, security, contact center, and others.
Mm-hmm.
So we can provide our customers with end-to-end solutions, of course, increase our wallet share with them, and at the same time create a seamless support experience across multiple technologies. Look, more recently, what we've been really focused on and leveraging that voice experience that we have
Mm-hmm.
is increase the focus of the Microsoft Teams telephony offering.
Which is what we're
And this
using
was,
right now
which is
to
what we're using right
communicate.
now correctly. So what happened was Microsoft released what they call direct routing capabilities back in July 2018,
Mm-hmm.
and we took that as a trigger to start focus on the solution. And a month later, we were already testing the platform, and in October we deployed our first customer. And to be honest, we were one of the first service providers in the world doing so. So look, we have an experience across the board in this space that is it's I would say unmatched by many today. So look, today we offer this solution globally, specifically in Asia, which is a quite competitive advantage for us because not many global carriers today can have the ability to provide a full solution across multiple countries in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
We have deployed a network with 10 nodes across the globe, and that is growing. So from that platform perspective, you think about it in terms of capabilities, we have connected to more than 30 international carriers in the world that allow us to provide a global solution to multinational companies under a single contract and single support. So from our perspective, this technology is the focus over the next 12 months. We want to leverage this platform that we have. We want to leverage this advantage that we have. And there's some exciting things happening as well in this space for us. We will announce some exciting partnerships that we're doing over the next couple of months. So for you guys, viewers, please keep an eye on the news because you will hear about us soon.
Sure. And look, I mean, it's an incredible success story in terms of evolving from initially just voice to now becoming a company serving global customers and global partners. I mean, that's the sort of maturation that you would expect to see. And of course, with everything being cloud, I mean, one of the other things that you're well known for is the cloud communications for business. And what you've just explained is how all of that has evolved since the company started. And
Correct.
yeah, it's impressive. And I mean, Comms Group is an Australian company as well, right?
Yeah. We actually headquarters in Sydney, and we have an entity in Singapore. So we use the Singapore entity to push that international focus.
Mm-hmm.
Australia is domestic. So look, from that, I guess we definitely, you mentioned good about cloud communications for business, which has been our motto, right, since the beginning.
Mm.
Look, we always been focused on cloud services. We actually not into infrastructure. We never sold traditional services at itself. So since our inception in 2008, when the improvement of we seized the opportunity that were provided by the improvement of broadband technologies, bandwidth was most available, more cost effective.
Mm-hmm.
So people were able to access better applications. So we used that to our cloud telephony back then, and we never looked back. Look, what we did over time, we just, build a portfolio of services around that core offering, like contact center, call recording, reporting. And look, and these technologies are still the forefront of our business today. they're relevant. The main thing right now is there's been a major shift in the unified communication space, and this is driven by businesses like Microsoft, Google, and Zoom. What that means is they're changing the landscape because they have created a seamless experience between a user collaboration tool like the one that we're using now for video calls, messaging, sharing files, and a phone system under the same application. So what that means is, as a user, you don't need to be worried about using a different device or a different application to make your calls, while you can also collaborate at the same time. So we have taken a note from that leadership, from those businesses, and we have focused on building a solution around Microsoft Teams that allow us to allow them to add add-on services on top. And the idea is simple, right? Let's say that you like we are right now using this tool for your collaboration, and then you enable your phone system through us, and then you can actually call mobile phones, you can call businesses outside your environment. But then you now want to add different functionalities like contact center, call recording, reporting. How do I know what's going on in my Teams environment? So you now can do that through us. We will give you the ability to do that and use the same applications that you're using today. Yeah. So from a productivity perspective, that's a valuable position for us. We know Teams calling is an offering that a lot of people offer and have in the market. But from our perspective, it's just not about Teams calling. It's about whatever else you put over the top. Yeah. And that's why we've been so successful in this space.
Yeah. Look, I remember and I've mentioned this in other video interviews where, I sort of heard the term software as a service for the first time in the year 2000 at some briefing. I sort of just remember that. And of course, the internet only really came alive as we know it in the early 90s. 95 was when we had Windows 95 that, brought us, that didn't even have a browser built in. It was Windows 98 that said with Internet Explorer in there. But I remember with Windows 3.1, connecting up with the early Mosaic browsers. And here we are in 2021. It's not that long ago that we didn't have all of this. And, 2008 is cloud was well established by then. And here we are in 2021, and it makes those early days seem quite primitive in comparison, even though it was quite advanced in 2008 compared to what we have with Windows 95.
Yeah, you're right. Cloud existed already; it just wasn't called cloud. The cloud became more of like a commercialization of the old infrastructure that people were using remotely. So
data centers, accessing external resources. So look, you've mentioned a number of successful products. The cloud communications for business is what it started with, and of course all the MS Teams stuff and integrations and all the rest that you do. But has that the most successful product or service that you've got? Is there one that you want to highlight that people aren't using enough of? Which are some other products or services that you have that people should be knowing about?
Look, definitely, we lead at this stage is anything related to voice, right? We do. Teams is our strategic product just because of what's going on, and Microsoft is doing pretty much the work for us because they're advertising it and people are using it every day. So for us, it's definitely our most successful product. Look, anything around voice we can offer you, and we can offer you a unified communication platform outside Teams. But any conversation that we're having with multinational companies is around Teams. People, I had calls with people in the UK, calls with people in Asia saying, look, we have a mandate from the business that we're moving everything to Teams. So now I need to figure out how do I deploy these internationally.
Yeah. And of course with Teams, it's you get it for free as part of Microsoft Office. You don't have to pay an extra Zoom subscription. But then of course, if you want to plug in to the services that you offer, well, then you need the services of a...
And correct. Let me tell you a bit about that. So it's exactly what you said. So Microsoft already offers the Teams collaboration tool a part of the Office suite, right? So it depends on the license tab. You might need to add something else to enable the phone system. But to be honest, transition-wise, it's pretty simple. You're already using it. So look, from our perspective, we have we have actually come up with a deployment process that requires zero end-user interaction. What that means is, and it can be done within 2 hours. So imagine you as a user, it's as simple as one day you have a dial pad in your application and have a phone number assigned to you, and you can start making calls.
Yeah, you don't need physical hardware. It's all soft if you want it to be all on your phone. Yeah,
correct. So from that perspective, user adoption is usually a challenge when you're changing telephony systems. Becomes an easy transition because people are already using this tool. So I'm just telling them to use this tool also to make your calls. So look, it's been interesting. Another thing that is driving the Teams adoption is Skype for Business telephony end of life, which is the 31st of July this year. So we already have been helping a lot of businesses that transition from Skype for Business to Teams, and we still see a lot of demand for that. We're actually in the process of doing one for a big financial services company here in Australia, which is quite interesting. So look, definitely, look, we can offer multiple service, but for us strategically, Teams has been the most successful product today.
Yeah. And you just mentioned a customer by industry. Are there any other customer success stories that you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. Look, I can come up with a few, I guess. Asia, for example, financial services business as well, international wealth management, FTSE 100, massive internet, I guess, finance business in headquartered in the UK. They were looking for a business to provide them Teams calling and call recording in Asia. So we deployed that for them in China, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Another interesting story in the UK, a big global transportation and logistic company, which funny enough, they were already using Teams calling in Australia, but the current incumbent could not provide the service in the UK. So they were relocating one of their main offices in London, and they wanted to take the opportunity to move the users from the old system to Teams as well, as an easy way of triggering that change. And look, they were referred to us. We helped them over in a week. We did this over Christmas. We were on calls pretty much over the week, Christmas all the way to 24th of December, helping them out to be online. Yeah. And that was a quite success story. On the back of that, because of that relationship and the way that we deliver it, they actually now want to talk to us, expanding that capability around Asia and Europe. Look, there's another one, I guess, in Australia, local council during COVID helped them, apply to that remote working environment, deploying 600 users over a couple of weeks. And most recently here in Australia, a leading cloud service distributor that wanted to adopt Teams calling across all their offices. So they have offices in Australia and in Asia. So we are doing Teams calling for them and contact center as well.
Sure. So we've learned a lot about the company and the various products and services and the sort of maturation, but I always like to ask the people I'm interviewing to tell us a little bit about themselves. So what's your personal history in the world of tech?
Sure. Look, well, I gotta say first, I'm originally from Venezuela, so that's why you hear my accent and my name, right? We come from a Spanish background, so. Look, I've been in the telco and ICT industry since 2006, since when I finished my engineering degree. I remember my first job was in the biggest telco back in Venezuela, which is like a Telstra here. I was a project engineer, and I was in charge of leading the implementation and deployment of network infrastructure for the broadband business unit. And what that meant was that I actually was in charge of making sure we have ports of DSL, ports of broadband ports for them to sell. And it's funny that you mentioned speeds that back in the day. I remember back in those days, the highest bandwidth that was offered on those ports were 256 kilobits per second. They wouldn't offer actually quota. They just offer unlimited plans, but you can only use 256. Yeah. And for us back in Venezuela, we didn't have infrastructure to support anything higher. And look, to be honest, for us, it was all right. That's what we were used to. Look, after that, I have worked in a variety of roles from pre-sales, commercials, and sales. Before I left Venezuela, I led the establishment and growth of D-Link, the network vendor networking business for corporate and government as a technical lead, center technologies like firewall, switching, routing. So my background around networking is pretty much quite in depth. Look, I arrived in Australia in 2009. I started working for a telco called Amcom, which was later acquired by Vocus. My latest role there was national wholesale manager. And one of my strategic products to push was actually cloud telephony. So I've been in the cloud telephony space for a while here in Australia. More recently, I had a commercial director role within a local MSP that had ASM presence. Look, I look after areas, multiple areas there, like commercial, pre-sales, procurement. And I was and I play a key role in the growth strategy over the years. We actually had double-digit growth over 4 years, consecutive years back in those days before I left. So it was quite exciting. And look, and today in Comms Group, I'm really excited about the opportunity that what we're doing. I think the sky is the limit for us, and looking forward to the next few years, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'll ask about the future in a second, but what was your first computing experience, your memory of your first computer in Venezuela? I've never heard about, I've heard about computers in Russia. We all know about computers in the UK and in America, but what were the computers around when you were growing up?
Look, it's a good question. I remember, look, you get the traditional vendors, you back then Compact or Gateway, or I think if I remember correctly, the first proper computer that we had at home was a Compact
Right.
with Windows 95.
Yeah.
So that for me was revolutionary. I remember for me it was so exciting to see these colors and stuff because I did work I think we had at school some ones with 3.1, which is really more square-like. And
Yeah.
I remember the Minesweeper game. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Which was quite, but having that new Compact Windows 95 was fun. And then we, playing with stuff. And I was a big PC gamer back then, so we played, games at PCs is actually was actually quite exciting. I think that's it. And then remember from a connectivity perspective that you were talking about speed. My first connection was a modem 56 kilobits per second. I still remember in my head the sound that it made when you click on connect to the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it
stuff.
was wow. This is amazing. Of course, once you start, when you grow up, when you start using it more often, you realize, oh, this could be faster. But I guess this is what it is.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I remember starting with a 300 baud modem back in '83, and by the time 56 came along, I mean that was broadband, But then of course we had faster versions of broadband, and at the time, when the ADSL speeds in Australia started at 256 kilobits per second, we were calling that fraudband because people had 1.5 megabits or 1500 kilobits per second. So it's interesting to see how the different perceptions are. I mean, I'm sure Venezuela, despite its political troubles, has much faster broadband now. And
Yeah, look, I wouldn't. I mean, I know it has improved since the days, but yeah, I don't know. And then you mentioned some technologies before that I don't think if they were available, they weren't available to the masses. In Venezuela, I think 95, 96 is when it started. I was lucky enough that I grew up in a middle class family where we could buy the service and have it at home for certain things. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it's been interesting the
it
evolution
set you
now
on
when you
your
think
career.
about. Yeah, no, 100%. Education was a bit the priority at home.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what was said by my
your
parents.
parents had their priorities straight. So look, from the past to the future, we've come so far in the last decade. But how do you think the communications industry, the NBN, mobile networks, Comms Group, how do you think it'll all evolve over the next few years? What will it look like, do you think, in 2030?
Look, if I were a genie, it would be amazing. All right, so I know where to put my bets on. Look, to be honest, it's going to be an interesting next 10 years. It has been interesting past 10 years, if you ask me, and it can only get better, to be honest. From what we focus, which is unified communication space, look, IDC is already predicting that the market will grow at a 7% rate annually. So we are in a great position to take advantage of that opportunity, right? And then when you read what Gartner is saying, they're saying that 40% of enterprise or the enterprise telephony purchases will be based on a cloud suite, and either will be Microsoft or Google. So when you think about that, we're also in well positioned to take advantage of that opportunity in the next 5 years. From a technology perspective itself, I do believe the adoption of 5G will just accelerate disruption in the market across the board, but will enable business to create better experience for the customers. I think Gartner refers to a total experience strategy, where business have to develop new platform, multi-experience platforms to reach their audience. We're talking about just not voice, we're talking about chat, we're talking about augmented reality, maybe holograms, I don't know, maybe allows for that. Wearable devices, as you know, how many devices you have, Alex, today? I have, my
Too
fitness,
many.
my phone, my stuff. So how do you first reach them, and how do you differentiate that message out of all that noise? That's interesting on the new generation, because you don't see the new generation don't on the phone mostly. They just either chat or on social media and use social media platforms to communicate. So it'll be interesting to see how 5G explodes that, because and I think it will be quite interesting. Look, from our perspective, we always evaluating new technologies and its applications, looking at ways to staying ahead of the curve. But I think today we're well positioned on that growth that the market is telling us. So pretty exciting times.
Yeah. Now, my second last question is simply to ask, what is some of the best advice that you've received in life to help you get where you are today?
Look, I think it might sound, I'm sure a lot of people heard this before, but for me, it's, embrace change, to be honest. Take it as an opportunity, not as a detriment. We are a connected society driven by technology, and that accelerates change in our industry itself. we have to take that as an opportunity to innovate and adopt new ways. And I think if I were to be more blunt, I guess, it's like if you go back to biology and what Darwin used to say, the ones that survive are the ones who adapt. So for me, that still is valid today. It's just now related to technology instead of the natural evolution of things. From our perspective, from my perspective, I think you need to stay agile and vigilant of what's happening, learn and adopt game-changer technologies so you can stay ahead of your competition.
And so the final question is simply, what's your final message to iTWire viewers and readers and to your current and future customers and partners?
Look, I got to say, if you go back to what we do well, which is unified communication platforms, if you're looking at organizations, need to make sure they're able to support their users in a way that doesn't sacrifice experience and performance. So if you're one of those businesses that is struggling with the new norm of remote working, or you are using Skype for business telephony and you need someone to help you transition to Teams, or a simple multinational business that don't want to deal with multiple vendors per region, reach out. We're more than happy to help. Look, and if you want to have a conversation on Venezuela or South America in general, please also do. I'd be happy to have any conversations. I'm a keen learner, so everything is a plus for me.
Absolutely. Well, Luis Ubraez, Chief Operations Officer of Comms Group, thank you very much for your time. Wish you the best of success, and I hope we can talk again.
No, thank you, Alex. It's been great.
Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.